Well, hello and a warm welcome back. A warm welcome back to our fibromyalgia celebration, a celebration of the new medical study that we've just had published. And we'll now do a Q&A in terms of questions that you may have around perhaps the paper, perhaps your experiences of fibromyalgia, and how the Gupta program can support your healing. So we're just going to go to the Gupta program page here, and I'll be able to see some of your questions. So please do ask the questions in the comments section for our Q&A that's live right now. And in terms of some common questions that we get asked, the most common question we get asked is, are you saying that fibromyalgia is in the head, that it's just in the mind? And obviously we're very clear. These illnesses are not in the mind. They are not psychosomatic in the traditional sense. These are real physical illnesses, okay, with real manifestations of symptoms. So in fibromyalgia, in ME chronic fatigue syndrome, we know there's massive increases in cytokine production. There is massive neuroinflammation, where there's inflammation in the brain structures like the amygdala, the insula, prefrontal cortex. There are definitely responses in the brain in terms of nociception, which is a kind of pain response. So we know that people are more reactive to pain. So it's definitely not in the mind, okay? This is a real physical illness. What interests me is not the physical aspect of it, but what perpetuates this particular reactivity. What perpetuates this pain? And once again, that perpetuation is not in the mind, but it is in the brain, in the unconscious brain. So having these illnesses is not our fault. We're normally not in control of these types of illnesses like fibromyalgia and unexplained pain. But through some novel brain retraining techniques, we can regain control over these systems and reset them. And that's what we're doing here with neuroplasticity approaches. So Geetham, just asking a question, do antidepressants help? I think the evidence on antidepressants is mixed. So there have been some studies that have shown a small positive effect in terms of kind of serotonin. And, you know, I guess I can't give any recommendations in terms of antidepressants, whether you should take them or not. But just know that antidepressants and pain medications are not getting to the underlying root cause of why these conditions occur in the first place. Now, if you find them helpful, that's fine. But if you're not finding any medium to long-term effect, then one really has to question why you would take those types of medications. But if it's supporting and helping you, then that's okay. Nicole saying, thank you. I've just started doing the Gupta program and I'm learning so much. Thank you, Nicole, for your kind comment. Please do let us know where you're tuning in from. And please do once again share this, this video on your groups, on your Facebook pages, and on social media. Susan asks a question here. To what extent do you find that brain retraining enables the brain to produce pain control substances? And to what extent is the reduction in pain syndromes due to other brain retraining? Okay, it's a very good question. Now, I'll give you an example of what we found in our study. So this particular study on the Gupta program and fibromyalgia, what we found was that in fact, there was a reduction in a brain chemical called BDNF. And that particular brain chemical has been associated normally with increases in pain and increases in symptoms of fibromyalgia. And we found that people who use the Gupta program, it normalized that particular brain chemical. So that does show us that brain retraining is directly impacting on the brain chemistry as well as the actual neurological responses. And you can't separate the two. So if you shift your way of thinking or you're retraining the brain, you naturally are impacting on the brain chemistry. And many people who have fibromyalgia, they find that they are more prone to depression and anxiety. They're more prone to finding it difficult to feel happy or good about things, simply because that over-response in the brain impacts on our feel-good chemicals. And then it becomes harder to stay positive and focused, which also makes the brain less neuroplastic as well. Geetham saying, I'm having reflux issues and muscle pain for the last 15 years, but medicine seems to aggravate my indigestion. Yes, that we do hear reports of that quite often, that there are certain medications which can aggravate stomach problems, can actually create headaches, etc. And that is a challenge with those types of medications. And yeah, we hope that you will try the Gupta program. Once again, please do let us know where you're tuning in from. Jerry Ann says, hi there, Jerry Ann, nice to see you. What would you recommend for a child who fits the dysfunctional pattern you've described in order to help them to retrain before getting deeply into chronic illness? Well, as you know, there are many schools now experimenting with mindfulness techniques and meditation. So the first port of call would be to encourage your child to meditate. And even children from the age of 8 or 9, depending on their particular personality, they can be ready to meditate. Okay, so meditation can help calm the brain down at an overall level. And then if you think that they actually need some brain retraining, we do know that certain older children, young teenagers, or even older teenagers, have used our program in conjunction with their parents and have been able to retrain their brains out of chronic illness. Elena says, have you had success with chronic migraines? Yes, we have. So I believe if you look at the success stories page on our website, I think there's a couple of stories around chronic migraines. And in terms of the process and how it works, how many people report that stress makes their migraines worse? So there is a definite connection between stress and anxiety and chronic migraines. And what mechanisms are then causing that? There are many people who have different models on that. But we know that when people use the Gupta program, and especially the soften and flow technique that we have within the program, they've been able to really calm down their migraines, if not allow them to disappear. So I definitely encourage you to use the Gupta program for chronic migraines. Jane asking a question, I just had oral surgery and the dentist hit a nerve and the whole area is completely numb. The pain is debilitating in that area. Is there hope? So Jane, I think if this is something that's just happened to you, what I would do is go down the mainstream route of treating that, because that actually sounds like an actual injury, a physical injury to a nerve. And it's only if you exhaust all the mainstream medical avenues and it then turns into a conditioned response in the brain, then that's when you might come to a neuroplasticity approach. So it's very important that you get a formal diagnosis of an unexplained pain syndrome or fibromyalgia before you use our program, because there are many other physiological injuries and conditions which can mimic some of the things we're talking about. Gaynell tuning in from the Bahamas. Very envious there, Gaynell. Okay, Sheila also asking about migraines, so I just answered that. Dina tuning in from New Jersey in the US. Natalie from Spain, hello to you. Bettina from Denmark. Geetham asking, which one is more helpful, meditation or deep breathing for calming the brain? From India. Now, Geetham, each of them have their role, and I would advise both. Now, it's like saying, which is more useful, the knife or your fork? Or a knife and a spoon, which is more useful? They both have their roles to play. And generally in traditions from the East, breathing has been a precursor to meditation. So what I would advise you to do is engage in some deep breathing, followed by some meditation. And we have some breathing techniques that we use in the Gupta program. We have alternate nostril breathing that we use, or deep diaphragmatic breathing, where you're breathing from the stomach. And we also highly recommend the breathing techniques as provided by the Art of Living Foundation, which is an independent humanitarian charity. And they conduct specialist breathing workshops and meditation workshops around the world, and they're doing them online now. So that's one that can be very helpful for calming the brain. But remember that with all of these conditions, we can calm the brain at a general level, but at the core of it, the brain still needs to be retrained. Now, out of those conditioned responses, out of that traumatic response it's got stuck in. Elena asking about chronic and long-term tinnitus. Yes, in fact, tinnitus is a symptom which accompanies a lot of these different conditions. And the reason we believe is simply it's part of the same process. So what happens? You have signals that come from our ears or the auditory canal in terms of a buzzing sound. And once again, we don't know if the buzzing sound actually exists or is it a part of the actual cortical auditory networks which are creating a false map of the territory. And once that happens, those auditory signals then start getting processed in the brain. The brain thinks they are dangerous and part of a chronic illness, which then starts magnifying the signals from the auditory cortex, and we get caught in that vicious cycle. Yeah, so a similar process may be occurring in tinnitus. And in fact, several researchers have prompted that type of model. Susan saying, thank you for your answers. Discovering and using the Gupta program is already life-changing for me in terms of pain reduction and other forms of increasing health and well-being. Your dedication and the dedication of your team make a positive difference in the world. Oh, thank you so much, Susan. That's very kind of you. Michelle tuning in from Kingston, Jamaica. Lovely. Got a lot of people from the Caribbean tuning in. Noel saying, I've been using the Gupta program for a while, focusing on some of the techniques, such as the stop technique, which I find extremely beneficial, plus the daily commitment and the daily meditation practice. Definitely moving forwards with newfound peace. Thank you. Thank you to Jerry Ann for your kind comments. Laura saying hello from Vancouver. Stacey saying, hello from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you for this program. I joined yesterday and I love it already. It makes so much sense for my mystery illness. And I can relate to the anxiety and my nerves that are feeling shot. Mavish saying, please can you guide me about fibromyalgia? I've been diagnosed with this and for 5 years now, I have body aches at multiple levels. I regularly have to take painkillers. So Mavish, yes, as we described in today's presentation, when pain becomes chronic, we have to ask, is there actually an underlying organic cause? And that's where we, in the mainstream medical route, we look at what is going on. And if we can't find a mainstream medical organic cause for our pain, it is likely that it is not the pain that's the issue, but the illness is actually the conditioned response of the brain to pain. Right? And that pain that you experience in your body, although it feels really bad, I want you to know that it's probably temporary. And when we fix the pain processing system itself, the pain itself should dissolve away. And we see this time and time again with fibromyalgia. So that's the hope I want to give you, Mahavish. And I hope that you at least take a look at our free program online at guptaprogram.com, have a surf around, watch some of our videos for free. And if you like the program, you can purchase the program with a 15% discount using the code STUDY. And also, even though we've had this study published, until we get a large-scale independent clinical trial with hundreds of patients, we're offering a 1-year money-back guarantee. So after 6 months of using the program, you can return the program for up to a year, get your money back, no questions asked. Okay, you got nothing to lose by giving it a go. Laura says, can you speak about the role of cortisol and stress in fibromyalgia? Yeah, so cortisol is one of the stress chemicals. So we have adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol as the main ones, but there are many other involved in a complex reaction to stress. And cortisol has the role of tensing up our muscles. And when we tense up our muscles, that's supposed to be a temporary effect. But what happens is, if that tension becomes chronic, there's constant buildup of lactic acid, which then can cause pain. And then we don't stimulate our parasympathetic nervous system, which is designed to heal the joints, heal the cells, heal the muscles. And we get caught in a continual state of fight or flight, which we call chronic sympathetic activation. Now, some people then say, well, hang on, in a lot of these illnesses, there's no evidence of chronic sympathetic stimulation. Otherwise, we'd find, excessive levels of these chemicals all the time. But what happens is the brain ratchets down its response. So the HPA axis compensates. And there can be times where we actually have lower levels of cortisol, lower levels of adrenaline and noradrenaline in our bodies and in our brains, than we would normally. So that's why this isn't a diagnostic criteria. Depending on what's happening, we can have either excessive levels of stress hormones and neurotransmitters or lower levels of them. Got a question from on our Instagram page. Why I have during the Gupta program detoxification symptoms? For example, a metallic taste in the mouth. Yes, this is very common. The Gupta program is triggering our parasympathetic system as part of the healing. And that means that our detoxification systems, our natural ones, will get triggered, which then means that we may feel more physically dirty, have metallic taste. But that's very important, because before, when we were in sympathetic mode, those detoxification systems have got switched off. So when we have that, many people find that when they use the Gupta program, they feel better, then they suddenly get a period of feeling extremely exhausted when the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and the vagus nerve kicks in and the detoxification systems are working correctly. They find for a few weeks, they just sleep for ages and they just feel really drowsy all the time as finally their bodies get that deep clean that it needs. And then they get their energy back. Margaret saying, as an ex-fibro sufferer, I can vouch for the success of your program. Your program is life enhancing. Thank you so much, Margaret. Jerry Ann says, even if there is an organic reason for your pain, Ashok, can amygdala and insula retraining help to decrease the pain that a person experiences? Yes, for sure. So in many cases, there are organic reasons for the pain. And we could say that underlying all pain, there may well have been an organic cause at some point, which may even be there now. What the brain retraining is doing is reducing the impact of that organic cause. So reducing the signaling to the brain and vice versa, reducing the signaling from the brain back to that area of the body, which may be triggering excessive levels of inflammation. Okay, so certainly it could support that, but only once we've got that checked out through mainstream medical routes. How is fibromyalgia diagnosed? Asks Rahana. It's very important that you see a rheumatologist or a specialist doctor in this area who can go through the diagnostic criteria to make sure that you are actually suffering from fibromyalgia, and they can disclude any other potentially important conditions. Terry saying, hi, here from Dayton, Ohio. I'm 2 months into your program and it's the first hope that I can actually recover. Great. Kimberly tuning in from San Diego, California. Susan says, would you please confirm how the Gupta program retraining rewires the way the pain signals are wired in order to stop or lower the pain? Right. Now, a lot of the times in medicine, we are working on a theoretical model. Okay. Now, what that means is that we don't truly know what is going on, but we can only surmise or guess. So in the diagram that I showed you earlier, which I'll come on to here, there could be several mechanisms at work. It could be that the amygdala is driving cortical networks into a state of hyperreactivity. So when we do the brain retraining, we're using inhibitory processes from the prefrontal cortex and the orbitofrontal cortex to control the amygdala's anxiety and tell it that we're not in danger. And the amygdala then goes on to inhibit signals from the periaqueductal gray and the parabrachial nucleus. And there is some evidence for that as well, a recent study on that. We also know that the prefrontal cortex may be directly inhibiting those places where pain comes into the brain. We may be damping down the reactivity of the thalamus. And I think the insular and the anterior cingulate are absolutely key here. So the anterior cingulate can keep our attention ratcheted on the body. So there may be some retraining there in terms of hypervigilance. And the insula normally modulates pain signals and controls the amygdala, which is why there's arrows going between all of these different structures. So perhaps brain retraining is sending signals to the insula that we aren't in danger and asking the insula to remodulate pain signaling, reduce neuroinflammation and general inflammation around the body, and bring the system back to balance. And there is evidence that the insula gets overwhelmed with pain signals, and the right-hand aspect of the insula then grows into a chronic anxiety state. And that may be at the root cause of chronic illness. Isn't it fascinating? And it may involve safety neurons from the prefrontal cortex to the amygdala. We know that in trauma, that's what we can see in animal studies. And there may be, once again, safety neurons to the insula, or it could just be direct reprogramming. Sheila says, thank you for all your good work. I've been doing the Gupta program since 2018 and I'm 60% better, but I'm having a dip right now and I need the enthusiasm to get back into the techniques. Good. And I hope that the publication of this new study gives everyone that impetus to really keep going with brain retraining. It really, in our view here at the clinic, is the answer to so many pain syndromes that people are experiencing around the world. And so far, we've mainly talked about fibromyalgia. But there are many other pain syndromes out there that people experience that really are impacting on their lives in a negative way. And we want to give people that hope that there is an answer to this. Rewiring, not the pain itself, but the system which processes pain, which has gone awry. Geetham asking, what kind of exercises recommend for fatigue syndromes? Well, it depends what you have. So if people have generalized fatigue, it is true that often exercise can improve our levels of energy. But when it becomes chronic fatigue or chronic fatigue syndrome, then exercise can actually make our symptoms of ME and chronic fatigue syndrome worse, and they can also make our symptoms of fibromyalgia worse. And this is something you have to experiment with, because some people find that exercise can in fact slightly help fibromyalgia, but in most cases it makes our symptoms worse. Because if you have chronic stimulation of the body, you're already using up a lot of the energy and resources of the body. You're using up those vital elements and chemicals that normally support the body in its exercise. And we often get post-exertional malaise after a day or two. So what's important is that you pace yourself and don't overdo it. So when we're talking about exercise, some of the best types of exercise are things like yoga, tai chi, qigong, gentle stretching movements which allow circulation to improve, and then gentle walking in nature. And as you improve with the Gupta program, as the energy comes back, then you can begin to walk longer and walk faster and generally pace the energy back into your system. Good. Good. So thank you so much for tuning in and listening to our Facebook and Instagram live events. And I'd just like to once again say that there is hope with fibromyalgia. There is ways of moving forward. And now that we've had this clinical study published in the Journal of Clinical Medicine, we believe it is the first independent randomized trial on a neuroplasticity program, clearly showing that neuroplasticity is far more effective than a control group just doing relaxation techniques. It is a groundbreaking bit of research, and we hope to have larger studies. So if you know other doctors and researchers that would like to collaborate on larger scale studies so we can finally prove how effective neuroplasticity is, then please do get in contact with our clinic. So thank you so much for watching. Please do go to our website at guptaprogram.com and join our free trial, and you can use the code STUDY to get 15% discount. And we really wish you the best of luck with whatever you're experiencing, whatever health challenges you're facing. And Danielle asking, is there a link to the study? Yes, if you go to guptaprogram.com/fibro study, yeah, you'll see it on the homepage of our website as well. At the top, if you click on that, we have the full paper available for you to read yourself so you can see the effect. And Julie just sharing here a nice story for us to end on. I started in 2018 on the Gupta program, and I've healed 100% from fibromyalgia, 90 to 95% from MCAS, and 70% from POTS and orthostatic hypotension, plus many more downstream symptoms. And Julie just saying, I started fully bedbound with full-time care. I couldn't move for the pain that I had. And now I'm working and studying and looking after my 3 children. So thank you to the Gupta program. Thank you, Julie, for sharing your story. You know, it's such an inspiration to people when they hear stories like that, that no matter what doctors have told you, there now is a way through, and science is finally proving this. So it's very exciting. Good. So thank you so much for watching. And hopefully you can join me in one of our webinar series. So when you join the Gupta program, you also get 12 weeks of webinars with myself, where I'd love to support you through your retraining. And if you really feel like you want to start with a coach or a practitioner, you're one of those people that really needs to work with somebody, then we have many trained coaches around the world who can work with you one-on-one in association with the Gupta program to help you heal. So please, once again, do share this video now on your Facebook page, on fibromyalgia groups. Let the world know that there is now new hope for all of us. So thank you for watching, and see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.